Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 11224 Southwest Pintail Loop here in Beaverton. I describe everything as if you're standing in the street facing the front of the house. Right now we are to the right of the front doorway. Cleanout's quite obvious. It's a 3-inch ABS cleanout that sits right in front of the middle window here to the right of the door. Lines up kind of with the right side edge of that middle window, but anyway, dropping into a 3-inch cleanout, ABS. We're going to check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Water is currently running. There we go. Now we're going to zero out here. All right, off we go. Line transitions immediately over to PVC pipe. Also appears to be 3-inch diameter. Camera right now is upside down. That's why the water's overhead. That's a remarkably clean flow line. All right, now we're going to, looks like ABS plastic. That would appear to have just bumped out to 4-inch diameter ABS there. Yeah, that actually looks like a spot repair was done here at some point. We go right back to PVC again. And we'll take a look at this spot on the way out when the line's fully drained. You have some buildup in the flow line here. Now, unless my camera scrapes everything loose, at the very least I'm going to recommend a cleaning on the line. You got some pretty good grease buildup, or debris buildup in the line here, it looks like. There we go, there's the main. Should hopefully get the camera lens cleaned off out here at this point. And I'm going to try and get a decent view of that. This might be grease, to be honest with you. That right there on the back wall of the main is stuff that's originating from this line. I'm having a hard time to even tell them what that is there. There's almost the appearance. Some of the gunk I'm seeing in the flow line here almost looks like dirt. And less like grease. So anyway, we'll see how things look when it drains out, but it's the appearance of it. It's kind of a grayish, almost grainy texture to it. So we'll see. And if my camera comes back with grains on it, like sand is on it, that's another indicator we could have that potential, but we shall see here. Alrighty, located the camera head successfully. Line terminates right out front here on Pintail. The line here is doing a pretty darn straight shot out to the street. Makes its way out to the road through the front yard area. We've got a little bit of water still trickling off here. I'm going to go kind of slow for a second until that fully drains off. Just to make sure what I'm looking at is moving water.
Yo.
Alright, so we're getting back into the bellied area here now. So what concerned me at first there, going through that, granted some of it's probably some level of grease buildup. You can see a lot of the pipe leading up to this point is quite clean, although that skiff at the top of the pipe there is an indicator that at some point in the past a blockage occurred. Again, my camera right now is upside down, so the bottom of the screen there, you can see how you have that film. Generally speaking, that film ends up at the top of a sewer line because at some point in the past it blocked and backed up. That's how you get those deposits. It's the coloration of the water that's concerning. That color there, as you look at it, you can see how it has a grainy texture to it. I still have a little bit of water trickling through here. Sorry, I wanted to make sure that water was coming from behind my camera. Anyway, I'm going to locate and see where this is at here really quick. You certainly have a belly in the line. I'm a little bit concerned just by the color of that water that the joint may actually be exposed to the ground. I've been doing this 15 years. I've cambered over 25,000 sewer lines, and there is just, you know, it's not a perfect science. That joint there too has has some staining on it that almost looks like the joint may be exposed. And I don't know if there was a root intrusion here at some point too. People these days are a little more savvy about their sewer lines and sometimes preemptively scope. I noticed, I mean, the flow line anyway here is very, very clean. Not that someone did clean it, but sometimes this happens where someone goes to cut roots out to get the line functioning nicer. And while that does get the line free flowing better, those roots sometimes can be clogging up a pipe joint and being what seals it off from the ground. And so if you go hacking them out, it can actually open the joint up and expose it to the ground significantly more. Either way, what I'm seeing here looks indicative, whether there was roots or not, looks indicative of a joint that's exposed. Especially this very first joint you come to here. You can see how that same exact coloration, graininess is going right back into that pipe joint. The joint immediately after it, you do not have that. Alright, so we're at about 6 feet deep here. I've marked that with a green X in the front yard. Other thing I'm noticing, right where I'm locating that, the grass looks completely different than the rest of the yard. It's much thicker, fuller grass, which can also be an indicator either that the line is allowing stuff to escape it, and or sometimes the grass is also a little bit different species of grass, it looks like. Sometimes you get conditions like that, either ground is draining into the line, stuff like that. You can just get a different appearance of the grass. Certain grasses will take over that can handle those conditions better, and or grass will start growing more readily sometimes because sewage is escaping. I don't know if sewage escaping is necessarily what's going on here, but anyway, by and large, it looks like the standing water dissipates off here at about 24 feet. Alright, so the belly keeps on going here. And I realize at this point, this kind of standing water on its own is not something I would ever recommend you repair. This is like, we're getting down to the point of 1/16 of an inch, 32nd of an inch kind of stuff here. The hard part, when it comes to fixing a belly though, you have to chase out all of it. You can't just fix the more significant parts, unless there's a really good reason to do that. I'm gonna go inside here, see if we have water still moving through the line, but it looks like about here is where the water definitely dissipates out completely. Prior to this point, we still have it looks like a little bit of standing water in the line. I'm gonna go make sure we're fully drained out though inside.
Nope, I'm not going inside for a while.
Right on. I went and checked all the fixtures. Nothing obviously is running, but when I look into the clean out, there is a tiny little bit of water still trickling through the clean out from somewhere. Anyway, at this point here, this is where I can visually, it doesn't look like any standing water's left over. I think the standing water may actually persist up to 34 feet here, even though it tapers off to hardly anything. All right, once I start getting out here, in fact, the second locate I did there around 24 feet, my locates are coming in really jumpy. It feels like I'm getting interference from utilities of some kind, whether it's underground power or something of that nature. When I start getting out, where my locate signal is kind of coming in right now is around the sidewalk edge. But it's coming in so jumpy, I don't trust it. I don't want to put a marking down. That's when I'd recommend relocating as it relates to fixing the standing water. And that the little bit of running water inside the house makes this kind of tricky. You know, by and large, most everything dissipates off right here around 24 feet. Once you're past this point, you may have a little bit of standing water. It's really hard to tell. Sometimes you get a toilet flapper that doesn't shut all the way, and it just lets little bits of water seep out. And when it comes to trying to eyeball the very end of a belly, that's where it gets... I can tell what I'm going over here right now. I caught a glimpse of it for just a second there. The joint right here around 24 feet looked like it was kind of tweaked. Somewhat of an offset. And I can feel it with my camera. When I get right here, I can feel it with my camera lens. So it just busted loose. I'm actually pushing on the camera right now and it's not moving. Push harder and then it finally breaks loose right there. So what I'm noticing at each end of the spot I'm locating here is you have a different type of grass. That's not always a dead indicator of things, but I've seen it so many times in my career. You will often get a difference in how the ground looks. So anyway, from at minimum there, from around 18 to 24 feet, I'm recommending a spot repair, both for the belly and it would appear the line is exposed to the ground there. That looks like dirt or sand is getting into the joints there, and it may be both of them at 18 and 24 feet. Now, I'm not sure if there used to be a tree in the front yard. The only reason I say that is just the way that the ground looks different there. The ground is sunken. Sometimes you get a tree that'll plow through a line. You know, people either find out about it and they do root cutting periodically, and or you may just have two joints there that just were not put together properly. And beyond that, the remainder of the line, once you get outside 24 feet, you may have some extremely minor standing water after that point. Again, it's nothing I would be worried about repairing from a flow standpoint. It's just sometimes you've got to chase that grade out far enough you can fully correct the line. Anyway, I've got that marked with green paint out in the front yard. I do recommend relocating. That's going to be on the report too, just to double check. Even at 24 feet, my locate starts to come in a little funky. I start getting 7 feet or more deep. I'm glad I went roots here. You got quite a bit of standing water in the crawl space. Looks like it starts to dissipate off, and I normally don't do a lot of interior stuff. I mostly focus on exterior piping. Oh, that turn's just rough on the camera there. Anyway, you can see how the interior line here, and the exterior may be as clean as it is. It kind of almost looks like the line got cleaned. The standing water in here may also be catching most of the gunk before it gets to the outside. But you can see how the buildup inside the house here is a much more orangey, grease-looking color, where the stuff out in the belly there is more of a gray color. It looks more like dirt. But I also am going to recommend repairs here too. You've got over an inch of standing water in the crawl space. A lot of times this stuff, without being in the crawl, it's harder to say. But a lot of times this is related to strapping, stretching that supports the pipe. And sometimes it's as easy as adjusting some straps in the crawl space to correct this stuff. So at about 15 feet approximately is where the standing water dissipates. It's around this turn here. It's a little trickier to tell at the moment because some of the grease deposits I'm pushing around with the camera. So it's somewhere around that ballpark. The belly may stop shy of that 15-foot mark. Plumber's got to get down there with a level. Anyway, and starts there at around 3 feet. Going back. Anyhow, recommend both those areas get corrected there. The standing water. The spot there in the crawl space is showing a lot more buildup. But that area there looks like it's been struggling. You've got deposits hitting the top of the pipe, and they're a lot thicker. That area looks like it's been causing more frequent issues than the exterior part of the line, which tends to be the case. The closer in an issue is, the more likely it is to create a problem because of not being able to have enough leeway or build up time to create head pressure. After any repairs are done, make sure a rescope is performed to check the work. It's important to do that, and you want to do that especially on the outside here, which requires digging. You want to do the rescope after the trench is closed to ensure you don't miss any settling issues after the fact.